Yo, what's going on? Welcome back to another video. I just came back from Texas, and bro, compared to California, there's so much space, there's so much greenery, so much flat grass, and again, a lot of space. There's so much space there, holy crap. Also, it was really hot. It was like 96 degrees when I was there. Came back to California, 55 degrees. But today we're going to be doing a different type of video. Like, I haven't done one of these point and shoot videos in a minute, but I want to show you guys all the tools that I use for all of my DIY projects. Now, obviously I don't use every single tool that I'm going to show you guys for every single project because, you know, obviously there's going to be a lot of different things that I want to do and some things that I don't want to add onto the pants or whatever I'm working on. For example, like distressing. You know, I could be working on some pants where I don't want any holes, don't want any distressings, so I wouldn't use a Dremel machine, for example. Or if I wanted to just hand sew everything, all the patches, make some like sash with stitching board or whatever, I wouldn't use a sewing machine. Now, there are tools that I do use for every single project, like essential tools, but for the most part, you don't need like so many, like hundreds of tools to start DIYing. You know what I mean? You just really need like the basics, but yeah. Let's get into it. So there's kind of a lot of tools. I try to go through each of them as fast as I can, explaining what I use it for and whatnot. I don't want this video to drag on, you know what I mean? But I will be starting off with the bigger tools just because they take up so much space and I don't have a lot of space. So this right here is a Cricut cutter. It's used for creating like stencils, cutting out outlines and stuff like that. For all those intricate shapes that you want to cut out, instead of doing it by hand, just use this. Makes your life so much easier. This thing is an absolute game changer. I think it was like 250 bucks. Definitely worth it. Before I had this, I went to a place that created stencils and they were charging me like 50 bucks for like 2 non-reusable pieces. So obviously that would have been a waste of money. I didn't go through with that. But yeah, 250 bucks, really good investment for a lot of projects. You know what I mean? You save a lot of money. Then here we have a sketchbook, really useful for, you know, jotting down notes, drawing out measurements, putting down reminders, like super quick. Cause you know, with your phone, you have to like open up the app and you have to type it in. This one's just super quick. You grab a pencil, write it down, boom, done, and there it is. Plus, I like looking back at my work too. I'd be like, dang, I did all this, like holy. And then next up we have this box, and this box contains my Dremel. I use this for distressing my jeans or really just anything. It gives it that natural looking wear if you cut it right, and also leaves a good amount of horizontal threads, again, if you do it right. Now, this tool right here is my most recent one, and it is called a filer. I use this for distressing jeans as well. Gives it that more scraped, natural distress kind of look, you know, and it's pretty quick too. I'm still trying to figure out the setup and how to do this method and how to get it right, so I can't really give too much information on that yet, but soon. Yeah, filer. Now this right here is a cutting mat or a measuring mat or whatever, you know, like this thing right here. But it's also useful because it has measurements, as you can see. They're by inches. So when you are trying to make cuts, you can be really precise. You don't have to use a ruler because there's already a ruler built into this. Very useful. Now this next one is a little surfboard. No, it's an ironing board. I have a big ironing board and I have this smaller one right here. I mainly use this one for when I try to iron out the hems for pants because it can fit around this side as well as this side. But when I do want to iron bigger surfaces at the same time, then I would use the bigger ironing board. Now, on the topic of ironing boards, you're gonna need an iron. Now, I'm pretty sure they all have this feature, right? But you know, you gotta make sure that your iron has the option to turn off the steam or, you know, turn up the steam, because there's things like transfer paper where you want the steam to be off, because if you have the steam on, it's just gonna ruin it. And of course, it's useful for removing creases as well as creating new creases, like new seams and new hems and stuff like that. I use this for sure every single project. Now here we have 2 rulers, have a yardstick right here for those longer measurements, and then we have a regular 18-inch ruler, and this is perfect because, as you can see, it's see-through, it's translucent, so it's very helpful when you're trying to get specific measurements, trying to make straight lines and stuff like that, because you can see through it. And there's also a bunch of lines and horizontal lines, and there's just a lot of freaking lines on this ruler, and it's super useful to getting straight lines. Now lastly, for the bigger items, we have of course my sewing machine. Super important. I use this for pretty much like 95% of my projects, and you know, it is what it is. It's super helpful for like closing up pants, sewing things together, obviously. And if you're wondering, the model of my sewing machine is a Brother ST531HD. Now, a lot of people have tool boxes they store their stuff in, but me, I keep all my stuff in this cup. It's just a lot more convenient in my opinion. You know, I keep it in the corner of my desk, and whenever I need it, I can see it already, pick it out, boom, ready to use, finish, put it back in, done. And let's just go on with this one. So I want to make sure that the surface is clean. Grab a lint roller, clean it up, easy. Painting tape. Before I used to work with paints a lot, but nowadays I don't really. But I don't just use it for paint, I also use it for like when I'm trying to cover up certain areas and try to hold it down with like newspaper, for example. Use this tape because this tape isn't like duct tape, you know, where if you just rip it off, it's gonna like rip your fabric, you know. Next up we have here a rotary cutter. Super useful as well, especially if you are trying to get like super straight lines. When you're trying to cut up big fabrics, for example, like the size of this table, easy, just shunk, and you're done. Next up we have some measuring tape. Very useful when you are, and I forgot to take this out. Boom. Very useful when you're trying to measure like yourself, like your body. You're trying to measure things that have like a curve on it, because you know rulers are flat. You know what I mean? You can only do so much with a flat surface with a flat ruler. Wait, you can only do so much with a flat ruler on like a curved surface, what I meant to say. Now this one, super important. I use this in every single DIY. Got a bunch of pins. Super useful, especially if you're trying to add on like patches, or if you tapered your pants and you open up the seam, and before you close up the seam, you want to see if it actually fits you, if you want to make any adjustments before like finishing off and sewing it together with a sewing machine. You can just pin it down with these pins and then try it on from there, and yeah. Now this is probably my most important tool right here. You probably won't consider this a tool. I do, because I use this with like the majority of my projects, and like I guess my style kind of relies on this. And this is size 10 crochet thread, because I do tend to hand sew a lot of my work, and I'm sure you've noticed if you watched a couple of my videos, I spend hours hand sewing. So this is actually like my third roll I've been through, and it's a lot. But yeah, size 10 crochet thread, and then I have this hand sewing needle as well. This is a really big one. I don't know the size of this. The thread hole, whatever it's called, has to be big enough where I can fit this thread in. And then I'm also usually hand sewing through denim, which is thicker fabric, so I don't want to use a thinner one because it might just snap while I'm sewing. Definitely an essential. Use it for every single DIY. Some fabric cutting scissors. Now one thing you can also buy with this is a sharpener. I have that over there. Obviously not essential, but if you want to keep it sharp, you have an easier time cutting through stuff, cutting through fabric, cutting through denim, especially because it's thicker. Next up, we have a pair of pliers. Now, obviously you can use it for, you know, removing small things and plying it off, but the thing I use this mainly for is this area right here. So like pincher part, this little inner part right there. And I use it for removing rivets on pants. I did a Carhartt DIY video, and the way I removed the rivets was using this, you know, just like exactly like that. Then I also have some Sharpies here. I use these to mark up areas that I want to distress. You got some paint brushes. Yeah, again, I don't really paint that much, but when I do paint, I have it on deck. And then I have some paints in my little storage cubby over there. Next up, we have a Exacto knife. Very useful. Everyone knows what an Exacto knife is for. Cutting out stuff, being really precise when you are cutting, or when you're trying to remove like vinyl off of the whatever mat thing for the Cricut cutter, because it's like stuck on it, just like a little adhesive. You use this to peel it off. Now last but not least, the most important one, very important, I use it every single DIY, and I'm pretty sure you do too, a seam ripper. Because pants, clothes, they all have seams. If you want an easier time working on the pants or whatever you're working on, you got to open it up. And how you do that, use a seam ripper. You know, you don't use scissors, you don't just cut along the seam, it's gonna completely ruin it. And this one, I actually have multiple, but this is my first one. Used to use this one, but as you can see, it's very small. And what's good about this, other than the fact that it's a lot bigger and more comfortable for my hand, it's not round like how this is. So this one was definitely the upgrade I needed from this one, trying to be more efficient, you know what I mean? Because this hobby is very time consuming. All right, I lied. One more thing, one more key tool, very much needed, a white chalk pencil. If you want to hand sew some kind of graphic on, gotta use this, and you can sew over it. If you want to cut out some patches on fabrics, draw the outline using white chalk pencil, cut it out, boom, easy. So here, all of these tools right here, right in front of me, are the tools that I use 100% of the time for all of my DIYs. With the exception of this one, actually, I prefer using the clear 17-inch ruler. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all the tools I use for my DIY projects. Again, these are the main ones right here that I use for 100% of them. Then all the other ones, it just depends on what I'm trying to create. All the stuff that I showed you guys is all the stuff that I use. Obviously, it doesn't have to be the same. You can use whatever you want to use, whichever you think makes your life a lot more easier. If you're starting out, start small, and then you can work way up. and then just find things around the house that you would think would work and just experiment, because that's pretty much what I did and how I accumulated all of this stuff. But that's a wrap it up for this video. If you guys liked it, make sure to drop a like, hit that sub button too. I'd really appreciate it. We're almost at 8,000 subscribers. Let's get to 10K before the summer begins. Actually, that'd be nice. Kind of a stretch though, but it'd be nice. But my next DIY project is going to be probably like a tapestry pants DIY. I was thinking of doing another Who Decides War pants, but I'm kind of leaning towards the tapestry one because that's been delayed by like 2 or 3 weeks already. Now, if you want to keep up to date with what I'm working on, I usually post it on my story on my Instagram at JuliusNathan. So follow me there. But leave down in the comments any pants you want me to try to recreate. I'll get back to you. Hit that like button, hit that sub button too, and I'll see you guys in the next video. I'm out. Peace.